Pokemon Legends ZA, or ZA, or Z-A. I don't think it's been clarified how it's pronounced yet, but Pokemon Alphabet Soup was announced recently as the next installment to the Legends series of games. Personally, I'm so excited about this as Legends Arceus has made its way up to the ranks of my top 3 Pokemon games and honestly, at least my top 10 favorite games of all time. Arceus was a breath of fresh air to the Pokemon franchise and I'm intrigued to see the direction that Game Freak decides to take this new game. As of now, all we know is that it takes place entirely in Lumio City in the Kalos region from X and Y. There's some speculation of time traveling based on the ancient scrolls, mixed with the futuristic grid shown off in the trailer. The core focus of the game resides in development plans for Lumio City, which is a very vague statement, not clearly indicating past, present, or future timeline. What this game also did was completely upset all the Gen 5 fans. Pokemon has had a similar pattern for several years at this point. Make a new game, and then make a remake of an old game, typically in chronological order. So when Pokemon Day of 2024 came around, fans had expectations of a remake of Black and White, or Black and White 3, or even Legends Kyurem. And Game Freak laughed in their face when they went ahead and skipped ahead to Gen 6. I'll be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of Gen 5 when it first released. I can appreciate what it did for the franchise, attempted a soft reboot, had some more in-depth character stories, and some designs that were pretty good. But despite all of that, Gen 5 still didn't keep my attention all that well. It might be in part that I was losing interest in Pokemon at the time, but don't worry, I still liked it better than Gen 6. But I thought it would be funny if we laughed and taunted at Gen 5 fans while they waited with bated breath for new games within the Unova region. Side note, I did not play the Scarlet Violet DLC, but I completely forgot that the Blueberry Academy takes place in Unova, and I think it would be hilarious if that was Game Freak's return to Unova. With all that being said, the point of this video is to highlight my journey through Legends Arceus, only using Pokemon originally discovered in Unova. While they wait for their spotlight, I'm gonna rub it in the Gen 5 fans' faces by playing a non-Unova Legends game that has that hint, that taste, that feel of what could be. I've talked enough, let's get to the gameplay. One of my favorite parts of Legends Arceus is the fact that the starters in this game aren't natural inhabitants of the soon-to-be Sinnoh, and they make it so difficult because these are my favorite starters of each type. Well, except replace Oshawott with Squirtle, then it'd be perfect. But no can do as we'll have to choose Oshawott for our Gen 5 playthrough of a Gen 8 game that takes place in an ancient land that debuted in Gen 4. Anyone who doesn't know Pokemon is going to be so confused by that sentence, but then again, I don't know why they'd be watching this video to begin with. Another thing I should mention about this playthrough is I'm allowing myself to catch other Pokemon for experience and to build up the dex in order to progress. However, when it comes to battles, I'm solely using Gen 5 Pokemon. And I'm not 100% in the game either. The playthrough will end at the super secret final boss. With that being said, Oshawott is our only available usable Pokemon for the entirety of the Obsidian Fieldlands, which is fine up until the required Shinx you have to battle and ultimately catch, and you'd think the problem lies with our type disadvantage, but no. I was supposed to catch that, wasn't I? The real problems begin with our fight against Akari. She has a Pikachu who is without a doubt faster than our Oshawott. And I'm perfectly fine going into this battle expecting to lose, but I kind of just rushed into it not realizing that I have the rest of the Pokemon I've caught in the wild with me. So if Oshawott goes down, then I'll be forced to send out one of my other Pokemon who aren't Gen 5, and if I did that, I'd have to effectively restart the run as using any non-Gen 5 Pokemon defeats the whole purpose of this challenge. Even if I could send in any of these illegitimate Pokemon in to try to stall out the rat, none of them have any status moves to stall it out with and force a game over. I've put myself in quite the conundrum. Luckily, I'm not doing any kind of hardcore Nuzlocke rules, so I'm permitting the use of items in battle, which allows me to heal off some damage from Pikachu's initial Thunder Shock. At this point, I've lost hope and accepted the fact that restarting is inevitable, but I take the chance and use a potion to see what could happen. And then, Pikachu not only uses Thunder Wave, but misses Thunder Wave. With that miss, I'm able to get off an Aqua Jet, which also pushes Oshawott up a step in the priority order, allowing us to get the victory in what could have been the worst throw in a Pokemon Legends Arceus challenge. Despite type matchups not being in my favor for that fight, our troubles are only just beginning. Mai's Munchlax poses a small problem, but starting with the sword stance and a well-timed potion, the bulky bear thing goes down. But we are far from done from our troubles here in the Fieldlands. Enter this Alpha Kricketune is quite the powerhouse for only being level 12. Being 3 levels higher, I thought I could take it out with little to no resistance, but it was faster, bulkier, and more powerful than our tiny little otter, so I got a slightly bigger otter. Alpha Kricketune still gets the first hit off, but we can tank a bit more damage due to the evolution. So I set up a sword stance, and then I'm able to take another turn. I just need this Aqua Jet to do a significant amount of damage, which it does thanks to a critical hit. My luck in this playthrough has been crazy so far. I'm able to defeat the Alpha Kricketune and proceed onwards. From here, most of the Obsidian Fieldlands are manageable. Leon didn't pose any problems, but Iridia's Glaceon was a lot bulkier than I remember. But a sword stance plus an agile style and regular Aqua Jet is enough to take down the Icy evolution. Which brings us to our last hurdle in the Fieldlands, being Kleavor. And look, I know, he's a noble. I know he's practically a Dark Souls boss, but I thought him being part rock type would give Duat some kind of edge in the fight, but even after a sword stance boosted Aqua Jet, it was not enough to take down the mighty noble. This is the first time I've ever wiped to a noble, so I didn't know that the fight would continue onward. I guess because it's not required to fight the nobles with Pokemon, that it just makes it easier to deal with them. But with enough bombs to the face, we quell the frenzied Kleavor and have finished our time here in the Fieldlands. Which brings us to the Crimson Mirelands, a swampy, boggy valley filled with some of the most deadly encounters I've had to face in my entire career as a Survey Corps member. The danger starts with the side quest to get the bog-bound camp set up. These camp quests are almost always necessary, as it's another fast travel location to put you in the middle of the area, so I decided to try to get it done. However, this camp quest has you fight against 3 level 20 Stunky. Normally we'd have a full team, so this quest usually doesn't pose too much of a threat, but having a singular Duat makes this a suicide mission. So this is as good a time as any to find a new friend for Duat. I hightail it over to the Cotton's Edge Prairie to catch ourselves a Patillo, which, might I add, was not easy at all. I'm pretty sure this area isn't supposed to be accessed until we gain the ability to surf on Basculegion, or at the very least make our way around this entire mountainous region, or we can jank our way up this cliffside and just barely manage to make it across the river. I managed to catch a new friend, and I had the realization. My stipulations for this challenge are only to use Gen 5 Pokemon, which means if I really wanted to, I could fill the rest of my party with Patillos. But that doesn't seem fun to me, so we stick to having only one alongside Duat. Now that we're in the Mirelands, space-time distortions are now able to spawn, and one does almost right away after catching the Patillo, so I figured might as well see what kind of rare Pokemon we can catch. I managed to get 3 Porygons but miss out on an Umbreon because every single Pokemon here is so completely aggro I have to run at almost any chance I get because my Otter and Plant just don't have the capability of handling these beasts. Speaking of handling beasts, even with Patillo, I'm still not able to beat the 3 Stunky. It sucks, but I'm just gonna have to wait until Duat gets a bit stronger before I can get this campsite started. And what better way to do that than to continue the main quest, which involves confronting the Misfortune Sisters. Probably the cringiest antagonist in any Pokemon game aside from Team Star, who didn't exist at this point in time. We only have to fight Coin and her Toxicroak, who demolishes Duat. My best bet is to get lucky RNG on status afflictions, but there's a moment of realization here. Hello doesn't obey me. Oh, that is problematic. Yeah, right now my Dex rank only lets Pokemon up to level 30 obey me, so Patillo doesn't even get an attack off before falling to Venoshock. After going around trying to boost my Dex rank up, I decided to access the part of my brain that remembers that Toxicroak is a fighting type and Duat has Aerial Ace, which I purposely taught it so it would stand a chance against the noble Lilligant. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. One Sword Stance boosted Aerial Ace is plenty enough to knock out the frog. I don't know why I always forget that Toxicroak is a fighting type. Oh yeah, and I caught a full odds shiny Geodude, just thought I'd mention that. Sucks I can't use her for this playthrough though. I also come to the realization that I was trying to strategically outspeed the 3 Stunkies for the camp quest, when in all reality I just had to use Slash a few times to just overpower them. With the Stunkies defeated, our camp is just a hop, skip, and a jump to the fight with Ursaluna. With it being a ground type, my water and grass Pokemon make quick work of the bulky bear. Things started rough, but things are looking up for us now. We just need to talk to a few people who are giving us tips on how to defeat Lilligant, and yeah. I didn't realize how hot it was the day I streamed this. It was roughly 70 degrees outside and almost 80 degrees in my apartment. I was super comfy, so I didn't even realize how hot it was actually getting. Like, it makes sense. Obviously it could happen, but I just didn't know that the Switch could overheat like that. This whole area is just a result of me not thinking things through all the way, in game or in real life. After I let the Switch cool down, we take on the Noble. Until I get a few more team members, I don't think I'll be sending in my Pokemon to take on the Nobles, because Lilligant destroys Duat and Patillo. But we throw enough food at her face for it to not matter. There were a few close calls in there, but hey, a dub's a dub. The Cobalt coastlands not only is the site of our new drip, but also the site of a new Pokemon in the form of Basculin. However, in obtaining him came some complications. Basculin can only spawn in 2 locations on the coastlands. Tranquility Cove, which is completely surrounded by water, so that's not an option, or Isle Spy Shore. I wasn't sure where on the shore the fish would be, but I still took a chance on making my way over there without the assistance of Basculegion. And it didn't go well. By the time I get there, I take a look around and finally determine that the Basculin are far off the shoreline, meaning I have to progress the story to unlock the ability to surf. In making said progress, Duat levels up to level 36, so I decide to evolve him into Samurott. Obviously this Samurott isn't native to Unova, but it's still related to a Unovan Pokemon, so it's still fair game. Speaking of evolutions, Patillo requires a Sunstone. There are 2 ways to acquire the stone. One is recovering satchels to gain merit points to exchange with an NPC, the other is to sniff one out with Ursaluna, which I somehow managed to do shortly after evolving Duat. So, I evolve Patillo right away, especially since Lilligant's move pool expands immensely now. Obviously this Lilligant isn't native to Unova, but still related to Unovan Pokemon, so it's still fair game. We can finally surf, so I make my way back to Isle Spy Shore. I don't know why I went there as opposed to Tranquility Cove, which was closer, but whatever. I went to Isle Spy Shore, and let me tell you something. I'm assuming Basculin are based off piranhas, which I thought were aggressive fish, but the Basculin here are such cowards. It doesn't help that roughly only 2 spawn at a time, and if they don't stay in the ball, they tend to run away before I get another chance. So the amount of backtracking I need to do in order to catch them is insane. I even tried the typical paralyze and weaken, and even that didn't work. And then this happened. After all of that, I just randomly jump, throw a Pokeball, and it catches. I hate this game. We have another small problem where my dex rank is still too low for Basculin to obey me, so I have to do more dex grinding, which is probably going to be a thing going forward as I don't spend too much time trying to add data to the dex. Since Basculin evolves based on surviving recoil damage, I figured it might be easier just to evolve into Basculegion right away. Now, Basculegion isn't even a Pokemon nowhere near to Unova, but it still evolves from Unovan Pokemon, so close enough, it's still fair game. The rest of the coastlands are very trivial. The Misfortune Sisters go down to Samurott's crazy move pool and a little assistance from Basculegion. Noble Arcanine also goes down pretty easy, with it being quad weak to water types, so with that the coastlands are done. I'll be honest, nothing really important to note happened during the travels within Coronet Highlands. No new Pokemon added to our team, an obnoxious NPC who I hope does not reproduce into any other characters in future games, my Switch overheating again, and a noble fight against Hisuian Electrode who manages to knock me out. But we don't talk about that. We succeed eventually, and we move on. And we move on to the Alabaster Icelands. Here we can get our final 2 encounters of our playthrough. First, a Hisuian Zora, who is very underleveled compared to the rest of the team, along with Rufflet, who actually won't be too useful until it evolves. But even then, a good look at our team, and we have a noticeable weakness to dark types, which, looking at Volo's team, there are 3 Pokemon with dark type moves, so there are going to be some complications with that. Also, and just now writing the script, I have just found out that I cannot catch the 3 genies until after I defeat Volo, so I won't be able to use them for that fight, which ruins my strategy for him a little bit, as I intended on using at least 2 of the genies, which means these 5 Pokemon are going to have to defeat Volo. As I've said before, the only rule in this challenge is only using Unovan or Unovan-related Pokemon, meaning I can overlevel if I absolutely have to, which, spoiler alert, I'll absolutely have to. For now, we enter the Snow Point Temple, and... cool. This will be the last time I mention the overheating switch in this video, but you should totally subscribe in order to see a future video to see what ends up happening to it. Anyways, we deal with Sabby's gauntlet of heavy hitters, secure our Braviary to fly around Hisui now, and get absolutely destroyed by Avalugg. I've kind of sped past these last 2 sections here only because the video is getting pretty long, as well as the fact that my trials and tribulations haven't been too challenging. My only downfall has really been due to my poor dodging skills when it comes to the noble fights. Let's breeze past a few other key moments before getting to the big finale, shall we? We fought a ninja chef, we took down our commander after he threatened us with his kinks, battled the god of space, realized I was supposed to catch the god of space, rematched the god of space to catch him, ran away from the god of time, 1v1 Rust knife only the god of time, or sniper only. The god of time did enjoy sniping me, captured the god of time, and restored the sky to its beautiful blue shades and hues. But beauty is only temporary, my friends. For as beautiful as the sky may be on this new day, there are those who wish to fill it with darkness. The darkness encompassing within the god of antimatter himself, Giratina. Gender-bent Cynthia, aka Volo, proves to be one of the toughest challenges within any Pokemon game, having a whopping 8 Pokemon versus our measly 5 eligible teammates. And you know, I'm just now realizing how fitting it is that a team of all Gen 5 Pokemon in Legends only encompasses 5 Pokemon until after this point in the game. Because it is this group of 5 that will have to defeat Volo's champion-built, champion-level team along with both forms of Giratina. Now, I am nowhere near prepared for this fight. My Pokemon are severely underleveled, but I thought it'd be interesting to see how well I could do, and to my surprise, I managed to make it to the first Giratina fight on my first try, and then it went downhill pretty fast. I've never really done challenge runs in Pokemon before, so I've never really had to manipulate and plan around what the AI will do, and because of this my next battle went even worse, as the AI did things very differently than my first go around. After some leveling up and meticulous planning, I failed and failed and failed. Countless attempts, countless efforts. Despite Game Freak making the newer games easier to level up your Pokemon, it is still a grind to do so. There's only a few alpha Pokemon who give out the large XP candies, and even then, sometimes when you beat them, you'll get a Seed of Mastery instead, which proved to be useful as I've had to teach some of my Pokemon new moves, and having them mastered does make some fights easier. However, I really just need the candies. Being underleveled is really the only thing that's holding me back, and the only thing that I can really do in order to accomplish my goal is to find the right level where my Pokemon can do enough damage while also withstanding the hits that Volo's team dishes out. It's a long and tedious process, and because of that, I just can't finish this run. It's just taking too long that I'm gonna have to call it quits on this challenge run. Don't get me wrong, it's possible. Possibly. But I just don't have the time, and the game gives me limited resources in order for me to reach the point where I need to be in order to finish this challenge. Had I been grinding on alpha Pokemon as I played through the story, I would be in a much better position. So with that, my Pokemon Legends Arceus playthrough with a team of only Generation 5 Pokemon has come to a close. Would I do a challenge like this again? Possibly, but not in a Legends game. Legends Arceus is great, I still love the game, but I think it's really only good for a one-time only casual run and shiny hunting. I did enjoy playing through this game again, and it has gotten me hyped up and ready for whenever we get more news about Legends ZA, Z to A. or Za. I don't know anymore.